Welcome to another edition of Team to Team, presented by Cigna, proud partner of your Arizona Cardinals. I'm Darren Urban. I'm joined with Jourdan Rodrigue of The Athletic, longtime friend of mine. The team you cover now, the Rams, having a very solid season. And there was always expectations out there since the last few years, since they went to the Super Bowl. It's interesting, though, as well as they're doing, there seems to be a storyline cropping up lately with the quarterback and Jared Goff, and Sean McVay has talked a little bit about how he can't be turning the ball over. Where is Jared Goff right now? There's so many different ways that people want to interpret him and where he is. He's had so many excellent games, and then there are other times when you're kind of left scratching your head a little bit.
Yeah, that's exactly the Jared Goff story. I mean, right now, the main issue is turnovers. He's actually beating the blitz extremely well, better than he ever has in his career. And that kind of was a big turnaround from that fiasco against Miami, against Brian Flores' cover zero that just hassled him all day. But that's also really where the turnovers started to get bad. I mean, he's turned the ball over 10 times in the last 4 games. And that's just something that has to stop. And Sean McVay is a very much a we guy. He's always we need to do better. We need to take better care of the football. But in a very rare occurrence for him, after Jared Goff fumbled the ball and turned it over and then threw 2 interceptions last week, Sean McVay actually came out and said, hey, the quarterback needs to take better care of the football, because their offense, all the pieces sort of have to work together in sync and in unison, and can be a very, very high-powered offense. But if the quarterback's not giving them a chance to start with, just such a huge problem. And that's, I think, the number one reason why this offense has not been able to get going, not been scoring 30-plus points a game like I think we all expected it to through the season.
When Sean McVay's Rams play the Cardinals, 30 points are not an issue. They've scored at least 31 points in every one of the 6 times that Sean McVay has coached against the Cardinals. The Rams are 6-0 in those games. The last game of the year last season, the Cardinals at least made it a little bit of a game, but every other game was a blowout. And in fact, last year when the Rams visited Arizona, Jared Goff had over 400 yards passing with 8 minutes left in the third quarter, and it was just a disaster for the Cardinals. What is it about the Cardinals that the Rams just seem to take such great advantage of?
They just really like the matchup. It's one of those things where it's such a team that they're all such a collective energy, right? And so once they start getting that feeling of what it's like to beat the Cardinals and stack up 2, 3, 4 wins in a row, it's kind of like what they experienced against the 49ers that swept them in back-to-back seasons. It's like this weird triangle that we have going on in the NFC West, and the Seahawks are like over there doing whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and so it's just this really weird situation. They just really like the matchup. They really like going pass heavy against the Cardinals. They like to do a lot of the sort of at snap motions, pre-snap motions. They like to stretch the front a little bit wider and then get the run game going. And it's just a formula that has continued to work. And so, you know, they're really hoping that this game operates in similar fashion, because like we just talked about, they have not been putting points up and they've been turning the football over. So while I do think that makes it an opportunity for the Cardinals to capitalize in a way that maybe they had not previously, I also do think that there's a lot of confidence because of prior matchups within the Rams team in terms of sort of using this game to get back into their momentum, to really finally put all of the pieces together in a complementary way.
On the other side of the ball, Kyler Murray has struggled a bit the last couple of weeks. The offense for the Cardinals has struggled. They were number 1 in the league in total offense for most of the season. They've had 2 of their worst games the last 2 weeks. Both Seattle and New England kind of did the whole mush rush thing with Kyler and made sure he couldn't really go anywhere. And I know last year Kyler struggled obviously in that first game against the Rams. Everybody did for the Cardinals. And in the second game, Kyler was dealing with a hamstring injury, which basically completely took the running part of his game out of it. How do the Rams, you think, approach Kyler Murray this time around?
Yeah, so it's going to be really interesting. They're going to need to really contain when he can extend plays, and that's not easy to do. And especially with someone who is as quick to cut and to even find some backdoor opportunities that Kyler has shown he is able to do. What I think they want to make sure is that they can cover really well and then force him to start using his legs. And their secondary between Jalen Ramsey, Darius Williams, guys coming in as depth, John Johnson in the middle, Jordan Fuller back at safety. I mean, this is a really, really good secondary, and they are among the lowest in the league in allowing explosive passing plays. So they want to try to make sure they cover super well and allow their front seven to sort of contain. Where that becomes a problem is they are actually missing their starting inside linebacker, the guy who is better at running sideline to sideline and sort of containing those edges. And so now they're on a guy who, is a little bit probably better against the run and against doing some of those sort of traditional downhill things. So this matchup now becomes really interesting. And I would expect them to pull in an extra defensive back, actually, in a sort of a 3-3-5 that you could see sort of help alleviate some of those concerns of Kyler getting to the perimeter and then going downfield. And I think that's one of their main focuses, is because if you can cover on the back end, great, but then you could still allow the big play to happen on the ground if you can't contain him around the perimeter.
It's going to be interesting because you mentioned that the Rams have done such a good job against explosive pass plays, and that's one of the things that's been completely missing from the Cardinals' arsenal the last few weeks, is not being able to really make those attacks down the field, and it's hurt their drives because, as we all know, if you try and go on 12-play touchdown drives every time, there's just so many chances where you could screw it up. And you mentioned Jalen Ramsey. One of the things that the Cardinals have going for them is DeAndre Hopkins. He's had an excellent year. There have been times the last few weeks where it doesn't feel like he's been targeted as much as normal. Obviously, he's a guy that you would want to get some explosive plays, but you're going to have, I think, the best cornerback in the league on him. And I'm sure Jalen Ramsey is a guy who would just thirst for something like going up against a DeAndre Hopkins.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's going to be all about it. And Jalen has been so great this year because he's kind of gone into every matchup and played it down every single time. Like when he was about to go against Golden Tate, he kind of played that matchup down, even though we knew that was a big one for him. When he was about to go against DK Metcalf and completely locked down DK Metcalf, he just completely played it down and was like, I don't even know if I'm going to follow him the whole time. It was so great. So I'm really excited to see first of all, what he says about DeAndre Hopkins, who I know he has so much respect for, and then also to see how this matchup plays out, because I do expect him to float around with DeAndre Hopkins. I very much expect that. And that also means that if the Cardinals try to do different things with DeAndre Hopkins, including move him inside, Jalen Ramsey's actually playing about 20 snaps per game on average in the slot because he's shadowing certain receivers, or they're using him as a blitzer or in run support. It's a position that they call the star. And so they're able to move him around more versatilely now and then sort of have the other defensive backs orbit around him in that regard, because they have two other guys who can play outside corner for them very well. So wherever they move DeAndre, I would expect Jalen Ramsey to be somewhere in the vicinity and be able to cover that part of the field for it. And I'm really looking forward to that matchup.
Jourdan, I appreciate it so much that you were willing to do this, and stay safe in the times of COVID. And I look forward to next season when the Rams and the Cardinals hook up and we're actually in the same press box together.
Thanks for having me, Darren. Nice to see you.
Thank you.